All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and all of our guests with us tonight. I think we're going to go ahead and get started at 7:15 as promised. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We're really glad to be able to offer this on Wednesday night when our kids can be here. We're happy to have the parents here, and we also want to thank all the guests in the community that showed up to be here tonight. We felt that the more people in our community we can educate on this subject, the better. It helps. We all have a responsibility to help get the word out tonight about what we're going to hear. We have with us tonight Sister Sheila Daugherty and Lisa Schmidt. They are members of the Tri-State Coalition Against Human and Sex Trafficking and Slavery. It's an organization that meets in Dubuque, comprised of the sisters of the presentation and other sisters too? Franciscan sisters also, and then also lay people around the Dubuque area. They meet monthly, and I asked these ladies, I said, how did you get started on this topic? They said, we knew nothing about this when we started, but we just knew it was a very bad, ugly thing that was happening, and something needed to be done. So they went out, began to educate themselves. They've taken up this cause, and they are starting their 5th year of taking up this cause, going around educating people. It was interesting today as I was talking to them before we started. They said a lot of people consider trafficking to be just sex trafficking, but it also is slavery, organ trafficking, and I was kind of like, woo, when she was telling me that. So there's far more to it than what we may be thinking, and hopefully we're going to be able to learn all that tonight. Sister Sheila is a presentation sister in Dubuque. She's been a presentation sister for over 60 years. She is a talented musician, and she's also a teacher. And then Lisa works for the Dubuque Franciscan Sisters on their Charisma team, and she's also a massage therapist at the Shalom Retreat Center in Dubuque. And she has been a part of the coalition along with Sister Sheila both of them have been there since the inception of that team. So let's give them a big round of applause and thank them for being here tonight.
Give your mic on. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for being here tonight. I just want to start out with how many people know anything about human trafficking? A few of you know? Okay. Students? Okay, a few. So hopefully we can expand your horizon a little bit on what we're going to show you tonight. And don't want to scare you too much, but just want you to be aware. Our Coalition Against Human Trafficking is, our main focus is education. So when we started this 5 years ago, we really struggled for a long time. We spun our wheels a lot, and because we didn't know much about human trafficking, and so we like she said, we educated ourselves. We've learned. We've hit a lot of roadblocks, but we've come a long ways and listened to a lot of speakers. So tonight we have a PowerPoint DVD with a video, a 15-minute video that's going to be in the middle of it. And a group called Breaking Traffic, which is out of the Quad Cities area, produced this. But the video is going to, it talks about 3 local girls, and Sheila's going to explain that when we get to that point. So we're going to start out with a quiz on any kid anywhere. What was the name of the president who abolished slavery in the United States? Just holler it out. Abe Lincoln, that's right. Okay, got the first one right. What was the name of the speech President Lincoln gave during that declared slaves be free? Anybody know that? Emancipation Proclamation, right, okay. And what was which amendment constituted, abolished slavery? Which amendment abolished slavery? Anybody know that? 13th. That's right. Good. So far, you're batting 100% here. Okay. In what year was the 13th Amendment passed? Huh? Somebody's really close. 1865. Okay, okay. So one more. How many years has it been since slavery has been abolished in the United States? Huh? This is a trick question. You ready for the answer? 0. Slavery is still going on in the United States and across the world. It's illegal. It's been illegal since 1865, but it's still going on. And that's the sad part about the human trafficking. We're not aware of what's really happening. So in the United States, there are more slaves today than ever before in history. There's 20.9 million slaves in worldwide right now. So that's a pretty, astounding figure. So there's different forms of trafficking. Labor trafficking is anyone who is held against their will to work in fields or factories or hotels or servants for families or any number of things. And that's happening to women, children, men of all kinds. Sex trafficking, anyone who's held against their will for acts of sex for the industry. And domestic minor sex trafficking is anyone under the age of 18 being held against their will for sex and for the profit of somebody else. And who do these traffickers target? Teenagers. So that's why it's important for groups of people like you to understand this. The teenagers are the target, are the main victims. There are others, and it's mostly girls, but boys are targets too. There are many boys who have been trafficked as well. So we're going to focus a lot about women being trafficked, but it does happen to boys too. So we're going to show a video now, and Sheila's going to talk while I get this set up.
The name of the video is Any Kid, Anywhere. It's all over the world, trafficking, human trafficking. Probably one of the biggest comments we've gotten when we go, no matter where we go, but especially in Iowa, to give these presentations, there are people who say to us, well, it's not happening in Iowa. Yes, it is. It's happening in big cities as well as small towns. So that's another reason why we want to get information out to people so they come to know the signs of it, and if they see something or hear something that doesn't seem right, to report it to proper authorities. So the movie you're going to see takes in 3 Iowa girls, tells the story of them. One from Dubuque, one from Cedar Rapids, and the other one from the Quad City area. It's a difficult story to tell, so I hope you can get most of what they're saying. We'll have the volume up on it, and they each tell their story, and I want you to listen to some similarities of how they became more vulnerable to getting into this. What was happening in their life? What was their life like at home? And then after the movie, we'll share some of that, because those are common things that often bring people into this horrible evil. Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
When I was 7, my biological dad passed away, and my mom started dating another guy. He was like a nice guy at first, and then he became very abusive to my sister and I.
Growing up, I was raised in a single-parent household in a loving home and was surrounded by friends and family. I moved around a lot, really pretty much just stuck to myself.
As a young child, I had a really good life. I was very involved with church. I was a good student. I had a lot of friends. I guess the only bad thing is when I was 6 years old, my parents got divorced.
When I was like 10 or 11, I ran away from my mom's house, got into trouble. I ran away from there with another girl. We went to her parents' house in Cedar Rapids, and her dad wasn't very nice either. He tried making us do things so he could get drugs and stuff from other people, and I left there. I think I was just walking down one of the aisles, and then a guy approached me, and I said, well, I'm just looking for some food to get, and he said, do you have any money to get it? And I said no. He asked me if I wanted a modeling job, and he told me that I'd have all this money and that I could have food and shower and all this stuff, and then I went with him. He had some people from Chicago come, and another girl came. He told me that I was going to go with them, and when I refused to go with them, they took my pants off and beat me with a belt. And then they put me in their van and took me to Chicago.
When I was 13, my mom met my stepdad. That was a big change for me, and my mom was always working. My dad would come home, and he was just very controlling and an alcoholic and verbally abusive. I believed that I wasn't worth anything, and I was just better left out of the picture. I went to high school. I got involved with the wrong crowd. The ones that were doing the drugs, and their parents did drugs, and got involved with sneaking out. After graduating high school, I was introduced to Coke for the first time. I walked out of the room and said that I didn't need that I didn't want that. I still just kept drinking with them, and as the night went on and it was presented to me, I eventually gave in. My mom had kicked me out several times, and I actually ended up staying in my car for a week. My drug addiction became worse, and the alcohol, I was not just going out on the weekends, but now it was every day of the week. My life was out of control, and I didn't see it myself, but everyone around me had told me to get help. At the time, I had friends that were strippers, and to me looked glamorous. They made it look like they were making a bunch of money and men wanted to be with them, and I knew that was something that I wanted to do. I worked with the stripping not very long until I actually found that there was an escorting business that was here locally in the Quad Cities that I could get a hold of.
When I was 14 years old, I started smoking marijuana here and there and just experimenting with that. When I was 16, I was at a party, and there's a lot of drugs and alcohol there. I had drank a lot. The next thing I remember is waking up in a park, and my pants were off, and I was left just laying in the park. After that, I didn't really know how to feel, how to act, what to do. I didn't know who to talk to about it. But all I did was just block people out. I didn't let anyone in. Later that year, I started dating a boy from school. He was a marijuana dealer, and quickly after began selling cocaine. And that's when everything really spiraled out of control. I quit going to school. I moved out of my house. I was just on cocaine every day, all day. Our relationship became very abusive, physically, emotionally. Shortly after breaking up with him, my mom stepped in and she finally committed me to rehab. I was 18 then. While I was in rehab, I met a girl there. So when we got out of rehab, I moved in with her, and I didn't think my life could get any worse. and I went from cocaine to crack cocaine. I had met another man. For a while there, we were just going to Chicago and Rockford and picking drugs up and bringing them back. After a couple times of doing that, we were in Chicago, and basically he said, this time to get them, you have to prostitute yourself, and this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna go to a hotel, and this is what you're gonna do.
They took me to their van and took me to Chicago with that other girl, and left us at a house that was really old and it looked run down, and there were people standing outside with guns. And he left me there with a guy, the pimp. He came into the room and he took pictures of me and posted them on Craigslist. And he gave me a cell phone that I had to answer when someone called. There were people outside my door watching my room. And I had to do stuff like sexual things with guys whenever they would come, and then give the money to the guy outside my room. There was a girl who tried running away, and then he brought us all into the same room and told us all that if we did what she tried to do, then we were gonna get beat like she did, and he beat her in front of us.
Working for the escorting business, I knew I'd make a lot more money and it'd be easier. She also had told me that I'd be going by another name, and this would be a nickname that nobody else knew me by. I also was told to slip the money under the door. She had someone that would take the money from me. I remember after a week, I had wanted to quit and I wanted to get out, but because I was renting from her, I didn't feel that there was any way that I was going to be able to get out of this. I would meet clients at hotels and their house and sometimes truck stops. Because of the drugs and alcohol, I was so numb, but at the same time, I was always afraid, and I felt like I was living two different lives, two different identities. I did this for over a year and dealt with feelings of shame and guilt and depression and wanting to get out. I didn't want my family to know about it. It wasn't until I had got my second DUI, I needed a ride home and got a ride from a guy across the street. He took me to a drug house where I was raped by multiple men.
I had met another man, and he took me to Memphis, Tennessee, and when we got there, I quickly realized what was going to happen again. I feel like it was more the drugs than anything holding me there, but it was also him, because he knew that he had that power over me. And if I didn't work that day and I didn't go out and prostitute myself, I couldn't have any. I was just taken advantage of every day, and I was raped constantly. I was beaten. I was stole from. I was just stripped of everything, physically and emotionally. I remember walking down the street one day and a cop pulled over, and you could obviously tell by looking at me, I'm not okay. There's something going on. And he just said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Because I was just so scared. I didn't want to go back to a police station. I just remember after he pulled away, I was just like, I just wanted him so badly to come back, and I couldn't change that, and a part of me wanted to just go back so bad, but where was I gonna go? Who was I gonna call? And who was gonna come get me? Because who really cared?
There was a day that I got a call on the phone about someone who wanted to come, and the guy that came into the room pretended that he was going to do all those same things that every other person did, but he ended up being an undercover police officer, and he arrested me and took me to the Cook County Police Department, and he questioned me. But I was only 14 going on 15, and I told him how old I was. He knew that I ran away because I told him I did, because I wanted to go back home.
I I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. One of the police officers told me that I needed to get help, otherwise they were going to see me dead in a ditch, like they've seen many times with other girls.
So I was stuck in a little jail in Arkansas. That was my bottom. That was when I just realized, like, I cannot live like this anymore. I felt like I was slowly dying. I called my mom, and she said, you know, she'd be there to get me. And I've been clean since October 2009, and that was it. I just never looked back.
I don't want what happened to me to happen to anybody else. Anybody could pick you up. And it all happens really quickly. And I think a lot of the people that do the human trafficking stuff have less of a chance of getting caught in a smaller community is what they're thinking.
It's really important who you surround yourself with now, and I never reached out to any of my mentors or teachers or even family because I felt like they couldn't relate or they didn't know what they were talking about. And I think many times that these people are truly in your life and they do care, and if it's someone that you trust, it's really important to talk to someone because you don't have to make those bad decisions or go down that road.
My mom is a wonderful lady. When I got home, it was just open arms and love, and there was really no reconciling to do. When you hit those teen years, no one likes their parents. They're all crazy, they're old, they don't understand, but your parent is gonna be your best friend, and they're the ones who are gonna be there for you forever. And it's just so important to not follow in your friends and what they do and do what you think's right. And if I could go back, there's so many things. Like I would never have smoked that first joint, and I would never have popped that first pill, because that is what took me to this life. It could happen to anyone. I mean, you hear all these crazy stories, but that's never gonna be you. And it could be.
Don't hide your eyes, lift them up, child. A smile can change the world, change the world. Don't say too late, it's never too late now. When you can change your mind, change your mind. Tell me the little things, all the little things. The morning rays, give them your everything. 'Cause the little things, they'll be big someday, big someday.
So what were two common things that all of the girls found themselves in? Drugs and alcohol. They started going to parties, and the alcohol was passed around, and then pretty soon the drugs came. And especially through the drugs and the drink together, they became much more vulnerable, because you can't think straight when you're all messed up with drugs and alcohol. And then in a couple cases especially, things were not going so well at home. One of the mothers married a stepdad, and he wasn't the best to the daughter. And the other case, the mother was divorced. And so the kids were kind of roaming out on the streets a lot. That doesn't mean that they're the only kind of kids that are going to be picked up for human trafficking, but they're much more vulnerable. Something else that kids, I'm sure you like to go in crowds, crowds to the fair, some of your friends, and maybe to sports events, your basketball games or football games or whatever. Make sure you don't wander off alone. Statistics show that it's when young people start wandering off alone that some guy or lady, women can be traffickers too. I mean, they can be into that, heading up, getting a bevy of girls to be into this business too. So, because it's when you're alone that they start talking to you, and they'll sell you a bill of goods. I can give you the best job, you'll have nice clothes, a nice place to live, and if the kid is vulnerable and not thinking straight, that sounds much better than what he knows at school, she knows at school, or home, maybe. Usually they never leave them in the same vicinity that they live. So the trafficker picks the girl up and whisks her out away, quite a ways, usually to a larger city, like Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, they say, is a big traffic place where people are brought often. So those are just some ways that you can be knowledgeable about the topic that we're talking about tonight and keep yourself safe. Stay with the crowd. If you have to go to the restroom or something, take somebody else with you so that you're not left alone. It was in the grocery store alone where that girl, and things weren't going well for her. She was already in a group home. So she was, ripe material also for human trafficking. Now I think we're going to see the last part of the slides.
Before we begin, does anybody have any questions or comments about the video while it's fresh in your mind? We're going to save some time in the end to have some questions and answers too. So, okay. So how teens fall victim to human trafficking? We saw that in the video. They're vulnerable. They're start with drugs. The pimps will come along. I want to be your boyfriend. I want to be your friend. I'll take care of you. I'll offer you money, food, clothing, a warm place to sleep, a shower. So they're promised all these amazing things. And a lot of people ask this question of of victims of human trafficking and of domestic abuse too. Why don't they just leave? It's not that easy. They're afraid. Fear is a huge thing. The traffickers will threaten them. They will, like Brittany said when one girl tried to run, they caught that girl and then they beat her in front of everybody else. So they're really intimidated. And they're made to believe that they can't exist without that trafficker. So, and they can threaten your family members. The family members that's always a part of being trafficked too. They threaten the family members, and they know a lot about that person. So fear is a huge thing, and the traffickers know that, and they play on that. What puts teens at risk? Homelessness is a huge thing, because they offer food, money, clothing. They say they're going to give them these things. They don't necessarily give them to them, but they're promised that. Drug use. That was a common thread in those three girls' stories, was the drug use. We saw that, drug and alcohol abuse. So, and like Brittany said, or no, not Brittany, Christy, I think, said, I wish I would have never tried that first marijuana, smoked that first marijuana. So, gangs. In the bigger cities, gangs are a huge piece of this. There's a lot of that, and that trafficking goes along with that. Unhealthy relationships. Now this, looks like a guy is dominating a girl, but it can be the other way around. Guys can be in a bad situation too. If you're in a bad relationship, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. Get help. That's what your teachers are for. That's what your parents are for. That's what counselors at school are for. Don't be afraid to ask for help. The internet is another huge thing these days. People get on the internet, they meet somebody. There's a lot of people out there doing cyber sexting and cyber stuff. You got to be careful. You just have to be careful with that. Online risks, you have your predators. If you reveal too much, people are out there watching. They're watching for this, and they'll target you. Cyberbullying, sexting. The predators, if anyone talks to you about inappropriate things online, they pose as a teenager, but they may be an adult. Oftentimes, I know there used to be some shows that would show people who were predators, and they would pose to be a teenager, and they were going to meet this girl, and here they're a married man with kids and a professional life. So there's a lot of stuff out there like that. Don't meet these people one-on-one. If they want to meet you, take somebody along. Talk to your parent first. Don't go out and meet people that you met online. Don't meet them in person. Revealing too much. I know kids here, you don't do Facebook, do you? Not too much. Some maybe, but you do more what? Insta, what do you do? Chat rooms and things like that? Yeah. Don't reveal too much. That's the big thing. Like I say, they're watching you. Photos say a lot about what's going on in your life, and a predator can just get in and know a lot more about you and make you that much more vulnerable. Cyberbullying, when people use technology to spread rumors and gossip about you, and I'm sure we've all heard stories about that. Maybe it's even happened in your schools, but that's a hard thing for somebody to overcome. Sexting, there's another issue when people are sending sexually explicit messages across the line. This stuff is really degrading to one another, and it's illegal. You get caught doing this stuff, you're in a lot of trouble for that. So 19% of teens surveyed have engaged in sexting. I think that's an alarming number, but 60% of teens sent the sex to a boyfriend or girlfriend, and 11% of teens sent someone they didn't know a sext. So this is, here again, this is something that really needs to be avoided. Consequences of sexting is it is illegal, and it's a felony charge. So think before you hit it. Think before you send that. Laws against human trafficking. The federal law passed in 2000 is reauthorized every 3 years. Illinois and Iowa have provisions that commercial sex involving persons under the age of 18 is considered a sex trafficking regardless of force, fraud, or coercion. In some countries, I think it's Sweden, they've all but eliminated human trafficking because they haven't gone after the victims and arrested the women. They've gone after the perpetrators, the demand, and they've gotten arrested. And that's where we probably are going to have to end up going to. Once we can get our judicial system changed and go after the demand rather than the victim and jail the victims. Although sometimes jailing the victims is a way that they are saved. Like Brittany's story, if she wouldn't have been arrested, she wouldn't have made it out of it. So, or would have taken longer. So why does human trafficking still exist? The demand and the supply. There's the demand out there. And that's what we have to focus on, I think, in the future to end this, is stop the demand. And the money, it's a $150 billion industry. So there's people out there making money off this. If we can just walk away from that, stop that demand, and that's going to be the whole key to ending human trafficking. What can be done to end sex trafficking? Avoid strip clubs, pornography, prostitution that fuel the demand. Respect yourself and others. Respect yourself enough to not get involved with this kind of thing. So, does pop culture play into this? How many think our music plays into human trafficking? Anybody? Look at the lyrics here. Nothing like your last guy. He too square for you. He don't smack you and pull your hair like that. So I jail watch, hand wave for you to salute, but you don't pick. You didn't pick. Not many women can refuse this pimpin'. I'm a nice guy, but don't get it confused. You know, lyrics like that, sometimes I don't wonder if we even know what they're saying because you can't understand it always, but that's really degrading to women. That's very degrading to women. Listen to the lyrics and try to avoid things like that. Here's another one by Rihanna. Strip clubs and dollar bills, I still got my money. Strippers going up and down that pole, I still got my money. Bands girl, make your girl go down, and I still got my money. It's just degrading against women. Women are not objects. We're human beings, and we have to respect ourselves enough to know that. Young girls are sexualized every day, and there's a male dominance, and that's what we have to try to change in our society. Raise our young people to be respectful of one another and not to dominate one another. Ending demand, does it matter? Does pop culture really matter? How does it affect the way they are treated? Yes, it does. Statistics are showing that the lyrics of our songs, it does make a difference. It does add to this problem. And how can we end the demand? Respect those around you. Respect yourself. Refuse to buy songs with degrading lyrics. When we do buy those songs, we are becoming part of the problem. We're becoming part of the issue. When we're buying that kind of music, when we're purchasing the magazines, we've become part of the problem when we do that stuff. So, what else can you do? Protect yourself. Never run away to the streets. Be safe with the internet. Don't get started with drugs. And get help from somebody if you know somebody who's being trafficked, get help. Seek out help for those people. And if you have your cell phones, you can put this number in your phone. This is the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-373-7888. Or call 911. If you see something suspicious, do not try to intervene. If you do intervene, you may be putting that person in more danger. Always call 911. If you see something, call 911 and get help, but do not try to intervene. You could be putting that person in danger and yourself. So that's the number one rule here, because we don't know what to do. The police officers are getting more and more trained on human trafficking, and they know what to do, and they can handle it much better than we can. And for a quotation, one's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions. So hopefully we have stretched your minds a little bit tonight, and you have learned something here, and thank you for listening. We have a closing poem to read, and if you can read the I am still here, I'll read the phrases. I have faced my past, I have told my story of my pain. Many of my scars, but not all, are healing. Many people, but not all, support me. Most of the time, but not all, I am fearless. For many years I was silent. Most days now, but not all, I claim my story. Most days now, but not all, I have hope. Most days now, but not all, I feel strong. This is true all of the time. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of belonging. What I do is important. The world is a better place because I am in it. Thank you. Any questions? Any comments? How'd you feel after the video? None?
We have a closing prayer then I think you were handed it when you came in. So if we'll pray that together. Loving and compassionate God, we pray for the millions of victims of human trafficking. Free them from the chains of this modern day slavery. Heal their pain, renew their hope, and restore their sense of worth and human dignity. Convert the hearts of all whose actions contribute to the most vulnerable members of the human family. Touch our hearts that we may be instruments of your justice, love, and peace. Thank you for being such a good audience.
I do have one question.
All right.
I think when you look at the three that were interviewed for this, from some of the bigger metropolitan cities within our state, do you have a statistic on how common it is on like a per capita basis in the rural areas like where we're at across state of Iowa?
No, I don't think we do.
But it happens.
It happens. They don't have the statistics on that. It happens probably in almost every small community in Iowa and every state in the nation. The problem is they don't know where it's happening and how much because it's so hidden. And when some of these statistics are probably just, they're a guesstimate, and so it's probably much bigger than what we really realize. And because the traffickers are very good at hiding, and they move a lot. They'll move from place to place, so it's very hard for the police to catch up with them and get them. Hazel?
I noticed one of your handouts, we looked at it ahead of time. It has a map of Iowa on the back. And some people were arrested from Decorah and Fredericksburg. That's right down the road, folks.
Yeah.
Not very far. And other places in Iowa. But that was very eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, it's happening everywhere. It's just if
You
they're
know,
getting
those
caught.
two young people, I can't remember their names now, but one was the girl from Iowa City that lived in a smaller place. And my first thought, and it was the time of the fair in Dubuque County, and we had a booth at the fair, and so many people that came through said, I bet she's been human trafficked. Now, it didn't end up that in the end she was, but she lived in a smaller place. So, and there was another incident during the summer months, and where a young person was taken, and then they were found dead later. So, a lot of stuff is happening throughout all the states, so I don't think we can be safe anywhere. But now that you know a little bit more about what the human trafficking is and the importance of not wandering off by yourself, because you kids are the age where you would be at risk. And, you know, you may have wonderful homes and everything like that, but they're out for targets, and we don't want to see any of you be that. So thanks for being such a good audience tonight.
Any more?
And
Yep. One other question?
Is it happening to college kids much, or is it more kids?
it's happening to college kids as well, as usually they like to get people when they're younger, like more from 13 on up, because then they can train them the way they want them to, and they're coerced to do everything. I mean, when they're taken in these trafficking groups into a larger city, they're put in some kind of a holding place. And not much space for the girl to be in. And they're locked in there, usually, that room. Sometimes it's alone, sometimes they have other girls in the room with them. But that's where the fear is built in. The trafficker has all kinds of power over the girl. And so then when they go out and, you know, if they're ever out, I'll tell you a little story about one of our coalition members in Dubuque who went to the beauty parlor one Saturday morning to get her hair cut. In the seat next to her was a young girl, and the beautician said to her, "How would you like your hair styled?" And the girl wasn't saying anything. And pretty soon, from the row of chairs over here comes a man's voice, "Why don't you cut it and curl it?" And our coalition member knew right away this was a traffic victim. There was a trafficking situation going on here because he was answering for her. She wasn't free enough to say, to answer the beautician. So our coalition person wrote down the number of our Dubuque police, and she gave it to her beautician, and she said, "Go to a back phone, call this into the police and say we got a trafficking incident going on here." And so when the man and the girl left the beauty shop that day, for a few minutes later or half hour later, whatever, the police were waiting for them. So hopefully that girl got home and got free. Whether she was from Dubuque, we don't know. She might have been from someplace else and taken, you know, he might have been on a hunt for more girls before he went off to a big city with all of them. But anyway, so that's where we say, if you hear something or see something going on that doesn't look right, call the police and report it. They would rather have a tip that doesn't amount to anything, there's nothing there to it, than some girl that, you know, she really is in trouble and nobody's coming to her rescue. And the woman from our coalition that was sitting in this chair, she recognized, she could see him sitting there in the mirror that was ahead of her. He was a man, a businessman from Dubuque, a married man with a wife and children. Now he's part of the demand, and he's trafficking this girl. So it's all over. You can't be spared, you know. So hopefully you'll leave tonight with a little bit of more information about this horrible.
One other thing, when you talk about college students, I think there's a number of college students who are trafficked, and you may not know it. They may still be going to class or going, and that happens in high school students too. They're still going to school sometimes, and you don't know. Classmates don't know it. The parents don't know it. They may be sneaking out of the house at night because their trafficker is forcing them, and they hold a threat over their head, so they continue to do it. But it happens frequently. I mean, we hear stories about that. They're being trafficked at night, and then they come home, and the parents have no idea. They sneak back in the house, and in college too. They're out at college, and somebody may think they're just out partying. Well, maybe they're not just out partying. Maybe they're being trafficked. So it can be that hidden, and the person can be that in plain sight, and you just don't know it. And so watch for the signs. You know, the signs are a person who's withdrawn, and who won't give you eye contact, and they're not very approachable, and there's something wrong. So watch for those signs with people. Any other?
A year ago in Strawberry in the spring, we noticed a vehicle that we usually don't see, black in color, circling the bus, kids waiting for the bus. And so one of the people in my face area group, she called the police.
Yeah.
It was right down in front of her house. But I mean, here was these people, we've seen this vehicle before. And then that particular morning, they were waiting till it was on time for the bus.
Yeah.
And trying to, you know, like go up and ask them what, you know, like, you know, what's your favorite subject in school, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah. That's frightening.
And then it was a
That's
lady
really-
that was doing the talking at
Yeah.
Right.
the bus stop, and the guy
Yeah.
was driving the
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like in the video, the one gal, she was renting from a woman, and the woman was setting her up. So women are doing this too, to each, you know, it's a money-making thing, sad to say. So,
But that was good that they called the police, because then they can watch that car and kind of
yeah,
see what,
yeah.
I don't know
So-
that anyone that particular day came
Yeah.
up missing, but
But that's a vulnerable time, with kids are walking home from school.
well, it's just so happened to some grandparents, the kids come to their place to get on the bus because the parents go to work.
Right,
And they were watching out the window, you know, they were watching the kids from the window and noticed that particular vehicle and got the word out to some of the rest of us.
good.
yeah,
You just gotta watch all the time.
yeah. Any other questions?
I just want to add how important it is to stay in a group or whatever, because I can remember when I was in college or whatever, how many times I was off on my own, you know, you're walking at night, and I think I feel so fortunate. So I think it's really, really important that you always have somebody with you, and even today now, with everything happening, even when I go to a
Yeah.
bigger venue, I try to go with somebody, because we're vulnerable too, not to make sex trafficking, but for other things, you know, we
Yep.
can be vulnerable, so
Yeah.
try to be with somebody, because otherwise, there just are people out
Yeah.
there that are not very honest, because they
Yeah. And it's not only at night. This summer, when we were at the fair booth, we had a woman come up to us, and she said, "I'm telling everybody this story. This happened the day before, or let me see. I was there on a Sunday at the fair booth. It was the day before, Saturday afternoon in Dubuque, at the Hy-Vee parking lot out by Asbury. She was with her daughter-in-law, who was a petite 34-year-old. And she was sitting this woman was sitting in the car, and her daughter-in-law was standing outside, and this vehicle came screeching up to him, and these guys jumped out. And this woman said, "I stood up, and those guys saw me, and they got back in the vehicle, and they tore off." She says, "It happened so fast that," she said, "I think they would have taken my daughter-in-law if I wouldn't." And she was, you know, she doesn't look 34. She's tiny. She said she's a tiny person. She says, "I'm telling everybody this story." And that was the same weekend. There was on South Grand View in Dubuque, there was an attempted abduction. It was the same weekend. So whether it was, and they got that guy because they had cameras in the area. But that was in the middle of the day again, too. And that's an area that I go walking on regularly, so. You know, you never know. You never know. Yes?
My niece about 2 months ago was down there where the Schmitty's was in Manchester. She was doing meetings for that. The guy came up and had a hooded sweatshirt on, and she had the car locked, but on her car, she would take the locks off and once in a while locks the driver's side.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the other side, he was going to get in the car. She looked unlocked it once, got in, and she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, wrong car." So they got him on camera, and the police got involved, so that was a potential
Yeah,
situation that could have been very bad also.
yeah,
She's just in college, she was too, so it's fear global. It's
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah. We really have to be careful. We really have to be careful. Well, thank you for being such a wonderful audience and for addressing this serious topic. And
Keep
hopefully-
praying for the victims.
Yeah. And pray for the perpetrators, too. They need help. All right. Thank
How about we
you.
give a big round of applause, you guys. Thank you so much, ladies. What an important subject. I actually shared a personal story with most of our faith formation students a couple weeks ago or last week. Our oldest daughter was at Delaware, Iowa, at the gas station. And she was married and traveling home at 10:30 at night to go head home to her husband, needed gas. As a mom of 5 daughters, I never ever thought to tell my daughters, don't stop at a gas station along an interstate. And if that gas station is closed but well lit, pass it up. So the gas station was closed there in Delaware. You probably all know where that's at, but it's very well lit. but if you ever drive past that gas station and take a look, behind there are a lot of semi-reefer trucks parked. And she was a walking target. She had just had ACL surgery, so her knee's in a brace, and she went out to get gas, and she went around behind the car and got back there, and a car came screaming out from behind where those reefer trucks were parked, blocked her in, and two guys in hoods came running at her. And at that point, she said she knew she was probably a dead man walking. She didn't know what it meant, if she was going to be raped, murdered, robbed, trafficked. She really didn't know. But by the grace of God, a vehicle happened to pull off the interstate right at that moment and headed in to that gas station. As soon as they seen a glimmer of lights, they took off and they sped off down the interstate, similar to what you were saying. I still can hardly drive by that gas station without getting shudders, because who knows what would have happened had that car not pulled up. Again, as a mom, I would have never thought to say those things to my daughters. My daughters now know very well to never stop at a gas station that's not open by by yourself. So many of the things that you said. So a really important subject. I wish we didn't have to be here talking about this, but we do. And to each of you kids out there, just always in the back of your mind, remember, we brought these ladies in tonight because we do love you, we care about you, and if you ever find yourself in that situation, or if you ever find yourself in a situation that doesn't feel right, always remember that. Always remember this night, remember us back here, and that we care about you. So thank you for being here, everybody, and thanks again, ladies.